The Suzuki V-Strom 800DE is one of the newest entrants into what is a very crowded middleweight adventure bike market. The bike features the all-new 776cc parallel twin motor, which is also found in the new GSX 8S model. This 270-degree crank-driven motor puts out 83 horsepower at 8,500 revs and 78 newton-meters of torque at 6,800 RPM. But the real strength of this motor is its mid-range punch, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later on in the video. Looking around the rest of the bike, it features a new 5-inch TFT screen, and that's a relatively recent introduction for Suzuki bikes. They've been missing those for a while, and I think they've done a very good job with this one. It's very clear, it's very well laid out, and easy to read when riding. There's no fussy graphics, just simple and effective. I'm a big fan. The same goes with the way it's controlled. A single menu button surrounded by an up and down rocker switch is all that's needed to work your way through the electronics package. Looking around the rest of the bike, I think this is a very handsome machine, especially in this glass matte mechanical grey colour scheme with the yellow trim. One warning though is insects are a big fan of that yellow. I don't normally like beaks on adventure bikes, but because Suzuki have retained the DR Big styling cues, I think it works. The big square headlight has gone, replaced by a multi-LED projector setup, but I don't mind that at all. The seat is very comfortable and sits at 855mm or 33.7 inches tall, which for me at 5'10" with a 32-inch inside leg causes no problems. I'm pretty much flat-footed on this. Given the 220mm ground clearance, this is a very reasonable seat height. The 20-litre tank should easily give you a 200-mile range because this bike just sips fuel. Since I've been riding this, I've averaged around the 60 miles per gallon mark, and that's on very mixed riding and not taking it particularly easy. One drawback for the DE could be its weight. With a curb weight of 230 kilos, this is pretty hefty when you look at its other middleweight competition. But having said that, you don't notice it at all when you're riding, and actually it helps to make the bike feel really planted. However, if you're riding this off-road, getting into a few tumbles and having to pick it up a few times a day, you'll definitely wish it was 20 or 30 kilos lighter. The suspension is adjustable, and I have to say it is a very plush ride. I've spent many hours exploring back roads on this bike since I've had it, and not once have I had to get off to give my backside a rest. So let's get on to talking about the riding experience, and the best way to do that is to get this bike out on the road. So whilst I'm pootling through town here, let's start with the engine because it's a little beaut. It's very much like, not exactly, but it's very much like a V-twin. It's got kind of a V-twin sound, but I guess that's that 270-degree crank that does it. But it's also got the feel of a V-twin as well. It's got that little bit more punch, a little bit more guts. The torque figures are pretty decent for this engine, but it's just got that kind of feel. I think the throttle mapping is really good. It's got a really nice soft feel off of the bottom, no snatchiness at all. It hustles along, but it seems to do it in a very kind of relaxed, unhurried way, which I really like. And the bike's got a really nice engine note as well. Pretty quiet, which is a good thing really these days. I'm never particularly an advocate in modern times of the loud pipe saves lives type mentality. Yeah, pedestrians will hear you, but in modern cars I don't think it really makes that much difference unless your exhaust is so obnoxiously loud that everybody hates you anyway. But yeah, it's a really lovely smooth engine, very flexible. The one thing that really has impressed me with this engine is that mid-range grunt. It's the same engine that's in the GSX 8S, and I've got one of those coming when this goes back. By the mid-range grunt in the engine, there's more there, and for me that's kind of definitely where you need it, particularly on a bike like this. It's a sort of engine that's quite happily pulling you out of corners in too high a gear. The flexibility is good from that respect. You're not having to sort of cut your way up and down the box all of the time. I am getting a few vibes, I must admit. Nothing major, nothing I can really pinpoint. There's not really any vibes coming through the bars. There's not really any vibes coming through the seat or the pegs. Nothing that you wouldn't expect on pretty much any bike, really. But there's just a feeling that there's some vibration coming from the engine. And it may well just be me getting used to that 270-degree crank. I think it's a very rewarding engine to ride. Lots of fun. As I say, that soft throttle is nice. The power delivery is really strong. It's just not like super aggressive. But that for me makes it a really nice road bike. And to a certain extent, that's what most people are going to want off-road. Now obviously there's going to be engine heat, and I've noticed that kicking out predominantly on the right hand side, not anywhere else. But nothing to worry about. There's a little bit of heat there. I'm wearing short boots. It's that time of year, so I'll notice it more, but it's never something that's bothered me. So I've caught back up with this Volkswagen. Let's just give you an example of that mid-range grunt. So again, 47 miles an hour in fourth gear, past that junction, nice and clear. Yeah, I'm not having to wring its neck. There you go, fourth gear and past it. And that for me is one of the most impressive parts of that bike, and I think they've got that done really nicely. Whilst I'm talking about the engine, I might as well talk about the gearbox. This comes as standard with a quick shifter, and that's been fine. I've had no issues with that at all. It's a really nice, slick, soft feel. No issues with the quick shifter at all. It's good to see that it's on there as standard. It's one of those things, actually, once you start riding with a quick shifter, then you do miss it when you haven't got one. So it's nice to see that that's there. So I think that's pretty much all I need to say about the engine. It's a really good motor, puts out a decent level of power. Suzuki, I think, have got a really good balance here. There's enough power for it to be fun. As I say, I never felt like I'm lacking power. I've never felt like I really needed it anymore. On the road, it's more than enough. Everything just feels smooth, if that makes sense. So the gearbox, the braking, the steering, the throttle, it's just all nice and smooth, which I think makes for a very relaxing bike. Now, my first impressions of the suspension on this bike when I jumped on it were that it's plush, and it is. That's the best way to describe it. I think it's a really nice, comfortable ride. Plush but firm. I've not messed around with this at all actually, I'll tell a lie, I did take one click out of the back. My first impression is that this is a really nice road bike. I was expecting it to be a little bit compromised because it, I'd seen people saying that this has got more of an off-road bias, and I don't necessarily think that's completely the case. Nothing like as much as the Tenere 700 or the Touareg. It's a really lovely road bike. It handles very nicely. For a bike with 220mm of ground clearance, it's very composed on the road. It's got plenty of travel, but it's not wallowy. It feels pretty taut, but it really is a very comfortable bike to ride, aided by the seat. I think the seat's lovely. Again, I've ridden on this for many hours, and I've not felt the need to get off and stretch my butt, even after an hour and a half, 2 hours of constant sitting in that seat. So it's much better on the road than I was expecting. Not that I was expecting it to be bad, of course, but I was expecting it to be a little bit more compromised. And interesting, when I had a look at the bike from the side, it does appear that there's actually quite a slack head angle. Now, I think that helps with the stability of the bike. You sometimes forget that you've got a 21-inch front wheel on the front there. It just rolls really nicely into corners. I think the tyres are good as well. It's got Dunlop Trailmax mixed tours on there, which are probably a 70-30 sort of tyre. But yeah, it rolls in around bends, lovely. All in all, top marks for it. I'm struggling to find any complaints about the suspension and handling. It's just a very sure-footed bike that is really enjoyable to ride. But not only that, it's also very confidence-inspiring when you get on the dirt. Now, I don't mind a little bit off-road riding. I won't say that I'm an experienced off-road rider. I haven't really got a lot where I live. Nothing that's not much more than graded trails. I don't know what this is going to be like. We've had quite a bit of rain. I'm not really dressed for it, but this is a very straightforward piece of byway. As I say, I don't really have a lot of choice here where I live. So if I hit the mode button, I should now be able to change that to gravel. Mode, that's, there we go, mode, that's all set into gravel mode. As I say, that suspension nice and compliant, plush if anything. Standing position, I say pretty good. I'd want the bars just a little bit higher if I'm going to be doing lots of standing work, but out of the box, yeah, it's pretty damn good. And as I say, it's the sort of bike that just gives you the confidence to go and try places that you've never been before. Obviously, if it starts to get really tricky and you're not an experienced off-road rider, that's not good. But it's for this type of stuff, it just feels very sure-footed. And obviously, with the gravel mode selected, means that I've still got the opportunity to give it a squirt on the dirt. It's an odd thing here. There's a lot of sort of stones. It's almost like it used to be a cobbled road. I don't really know the history of it. But it's an unusual road. So most of it's gone, but it does feel like it did used to be some kind of old cobbled road. Not too muddy. Well, not really muddy at all, actually. But yeah, it's an easy trail. I have no Pol Torres or Kirin Mirabat. But this is the kind of trail that a lot of people will be taking these bikes on, and actually just out exploring these sort of things is where I like to have a lot of fun. Nothing too technical, a little bit different. It's getting quite overgrown down here. And then we're back to what looks like the remnants of the cobbled road. Oh, thorns. Oh, there we go. Not much of an off-road test, I admit, but then I'm not much of an off-road rider. So at least that gives you some idea on simple trails like that. Ouch. I don't know why I said ouch, it didn't hurt, but I felt that whack on my helmet there. There we go. This is a hell of a lot of fun. I know it's going to look pretty tame to a lot of you guys, but still, it's a huge amount of fun. A bit shitty there. Let's just have a look. Yeah, these mixed tours do clog up a little bit in the mud. Hey, that was fun. Lovely. So yeah, for me, to almost the extent of the off-roading that I will do, this is just perfect. And despite it being 230 kilos, which is, you know, pretty much as much as a big Africa Twin, you have the confidence to have a go at stuff. Whilst I'm talking about suspension, I should probably talk about brakes as well. Obviously twin brakes on the front, Nissan calipers, nice and strong, plenty of modulation. The rear brake is good as well. Generally I don't talk much about brakes unless there's a problem with them, because most modern bikes have got very good brakes, and this is no exception. I've got no issues with this setup at all. Right, let's turn our attention to ergonomics. And to give you a frame of reference, I am 5'10". I have a 32-inch inside leg. As you've already seen, I can kind of pretty much flat foot this bike, but that helps by having my 210 pound of bulk sitting on it. Given the travel that the bike has, I think the seat height is very manageable. If you're smaller of stature, or I've got short legs, yeah, it is going to be a tall bike. The hands, bum, feet triangle is good. A bit of a shit piece of road. I think it's one of the nicest seats I've tried on an adventure bike. It's comfortable. A couple of hours riding on this, I'm not really that bothered by it. I'm not looking to get off of it and kind of stretch my butt. Overall, it's just an extremely comfortable bike. Obviously, the one thing that stands out is the screen, which is well, I say it's non-adjustable. You can adjust it, but you need tools. There's 3 mounting points, so you have to get the Allen keys out and undo the bolts to move it up and down. This is always going to be a bit of a compromise with this small screen, but it does a good job. I'm not getting really much wind noise around the helmet, no buffeting. It's very much like riding naked, but the drawback to that, of course, is there's not that much weather protection. You do get a bit here, and your knees are sort of tucked in a little bit behind the tank. So I've ridden it in the rain and it's not too bad. It's more like a fly screen than anything else. I'm guessing there is an accessory taller screen, and now the bike is out, it won't be long before people like MRA are making, you know, different screens, much taller touring screens that you can swap over. So this bike is completely bog standard. It's as you would ride it out of the showroom. Obviously the quick shifter as standard is there, but you've got some decent hand guards, good coverage. They're quite nice and big. They're plastic, but they're pretty solid actually. You've got a bash guard on here. Again, it's plastic. It looks like it's about 3 or 4 millimeters. Seems pretty tough. Obviously, if you're going to be taking this off-road anywhere serious, then, you know, lobbing an aluminium one on there would work. You've also got a rack at the back and handrails, and obviously Suzuki do have a whole range of luggage for this. You can buy it as the travel edition, I think it's called, which has got all the luggage and everything on as standard from the factory. So overall, what do I think of this bike? I have to admit, I really like it. I love the engine characteristics. I love that nice soft but strong delivery of power. It's comfortable. It's got some nice kit on it. The quick shifter's really good. I think it's nice to look at. So who's it for? Well, I think it's for anybody that's looking at adventure bikes, doesn't want to go too big, and just wants something that's going to do a bit of everything. I think it fits very well. If you look at the competition, it's priced well against that competition. I enjoy riding this on the road more than I did the Tenere and the Touareg. I've yet to ride the Transalp, so I can't make a comparison with that. I like it a lot. I think it's quite a compelling bike for those looking for a middleweight adventure, and it's definitely a contender, and a very strong contender in that sector.
The best way for me to sum this up is to say that Suzuki have produced a very good middleweight adventure bike in the form of the V-Strom 800DE. It looks good, it rides fantastically, and at £10,499 for this bike in the spec that you see, with the bits and pieces that you've got on it, I think it's a very competitive price too. So if you've got any other questions, let me know in the comment section down below. And all that leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.